Water is soft, yet it carves valleys and mountains. To stop being a soft woman does not mean to abandon compassion. It means to cultivate softness with spine, compassion with clarity, and love with boundaries. This balance is where fearlessness is born. Strength is often misunderstood. Many people believe that softness is weakness, that to be gentle, kind, or sensitive means you will be taken advantage of, dismissed, or overlooked. Yet the truth is far more complex. There is a vast difference between being soft without grounding and being soft with awareness. The first leads to fragility, the second leads to wisdom. To stop being a soft woman in the sense of fragility is not to abandon gentleness. It is to give it a foundation of discipline and clarity so that it becomes strength. Consider for a moment a tree in the midst of a storm. A brittle tree that has never been rooted deeply in the soil will snap at the first strike of wind. Yet another tree, equally tall and graceful, bends, sways, and moves with the storm, its roots holding firmly in the ground. It has both softness and stability. This is the quality that must be cultivated in life. Without grounding, softness easily turns into passivity, into pleasing others at the cost of your own integrity, into saying yes when you mean no. But when awareness is present, softness becomes conscious. It becomes a choice rather than a habit. It allows you to respond rather than react, to listen without losing your voice, and to love without losing your boundaries. Awareness is what transforms softness into wisdom. To be aware is to know yourself deeply enough that your gentleness does not come from fear of conflict, but from strength of character. For example, a woman who fears rejection may smile and agree with everyone, not because she truly wants to, but because she is afraid of losing approval. This is softness without grounding. On the other hand, a woman who knows her values and her worth may smile just as often, but her smile comes from genuine compassion, not from insecurity. She is not afraid to say no, to withdraw from relationships that drain her, or to hold firm when challenged. Her softness is alive because it is carried by awareness. This awareness does not come overnight. It is cultivated through practice by paying attention to how you act in small situations. Do you agree with things you do not believe in simply to keep the peace? Do you hide your feelings out of fear that others will leave? Do you avoid difficult conversations because they feel uncomfortable? These are not signs of kindness. They are signs of softness without foundation. The real work is to notice these patterns, to breathe, and to ask, am I being true to myself right now? This simple question begins the process of grounding. Once you know yourself well enough to answer honestly, your softness gains depth and becomes wisdom. Strength is not aggression, it is stability. Many people confuse strength with hardness, with being loud, dominant, or controlling. Yet the strongest presence is often the quietest one in the room. Think of someone who does not need to shout to be heard. Their calmness commands attention because they are stable within themselves. In relationships, this is transformative. Stability means you do not collapse under criticism, nor do you inflate under praise. You remain steady. It allows you to be a reliable partner, a trusted friend, and a respected presence, because others can sense that your emotional state is not at the mercy of every passing wind. Calmness in crisis is perhaps the highest expression of courage. Anyone can remain steady when life is easy, but when conflict arises, when a loved one is angry, when a relationship feels strained, this is when true strength is revealed. Imagine a heated argument between partners. One raises their voice, emotions flare, and the instinct is to retaliate or defend. If both give in to this impulse, the situation escalates into chaos. But if one chooses stability, if one takes a deep breath, remains calm, and speaks from clarity, the entire dynamic shifts. This is not passivity, for it takes immense courage to remain centered. When provoked, it is strength without aggression, stability in the midst of turbulence. In such moments, calmness becomes contagious and the storm begins to quiet. This stability is not only psychological but also physiological. The body reflects the state of the mind, and the mind is shaped by the body. Posture, breath, and movement are powerful teachers of resilience. If you walk with slumped shoulders, shallow breathing, and tension in your body, your mind mirrors this posture, creating feelings of insecurity and helplessness. Conversely, when you stand tall, open your chest, breathe deeply, and move with awareness, your body signals strength to your mind, and your mind responds by becoming more stable. This is why practices of physical discipline, whether martial arts, yoga, or simple mindful breathing, are not merely exercises for the body, but training for the spirit. Breath is especially powerful. When fear arises, breath becomes shallow and rapid, triggering the body's stress response. If left unchecked, this state governs your thoughts, making you reactive and unstable. But when you consciously slow down your breathing, lengthening each exhale, the body calms, the heart rate steadies, and the mind clears. This physiological shift creates the space to respond instead of react. It allows you to embody strength without aggression. In relationships, mastering your breath is mastering your presence. When tension rises, the one who breathes deeply becomes the anchor for both. Movement too plays a role. The way you carry yourself communicates strength or weakness before a single word is spoken. A woman who walks into a room with shoulders back, chin level, and a composed presence is perceived very differently than one who shrinks into herself. The body speaks to others and to your own mind. By practicing movements that embody strength, slow, deliberate, grounded, you train your nervous system to feel stability even in moments of uncertainty. This is why martial traditions often emphasize forms, stances, and controlled movement. They are more than physical drills, they are lessons in stability. There is a story often told of a master who poured a cup of tea for his student, filling it until it overflowed. The student protested, saying, "It is full, no more will go in." The master replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and fears. How can I show you strength until you empty yourself?" This story reveals something essential. To find stability, you must first let go of the clutter within. Old fears, insecurities, attachments to the approval of others. Only then can strength flow naturally. In relationships, this means letting go of the need to control, to dominate, or to constantly be validated. It is the emptiness of insecurity that drives drama and conflict. When you release these, stability takes root. Strength of body, strength of mind, and strength of spirit are interconnected. If your body collapses, your mind collapses. If your breath is unstable, your emotions are unstable. To build resilience, you cannot ignore your physiology. Practice standing tall, practice breathing calmly, practice moving deliberately. Over time, these small acts reshape not only your body but also your psychology. And as your body and mind align, you discover that strength is not something to force. It is something you already carry, waiting to be expressed. Fearlessness grows not from denying fear, but from meeting it with clarity. Many people think being fearless means feeling no fear at all, but that is a misunderstanding. Fearlessness is the willingness to act in spite of fear. It is the clarity to see fear for what it is, a natural response of the mind and body to uncertainty, not a command to stop living. When fear arises, clarity allows you to recognize it, breathe with it, and move forward anyway. This principle applies deeply in relationships. The fear of rejection, of abandonment, of conflict. These often dictate behavior. A woman may avoid speaking her truth because she fears pushing someone away. Yet this avoidance only deepens the fear because she never learns that she can survive discomfort and remain whole. Fear diminishes when faced directly. Clarity reveals that discomfort is not destruction, and in this revelation, fear begins to lose its power. Take the example of someone who avoids confrontation in love. Every time she remains silent, fear grows stronger. The relationship becomes unbalanced because one voice dominates while the other hides. But the first time she chooses clarity, speaks her truth calmly, breath steady, body upright, fear is met and reduced. Perhaps the conversation is not easy, but she learns that she can withstand it. This experience changes her relationship with fear. She no longer needs to avoid it, for she has discovered that within herself is the strength to remain stable in its presence. This is the seed of fearlessness. Clarity comes from awareness and from training the body and mind to remain steady in discomfort. Fear is a wave. It rises, peaks, and falls. If you resist it, it controls you. If you allow it, breathe with it, and stay present, it passes, and you remain. Each time this happens, your confidence grows, and fear loses its grip. In this way, fearlessness is not an absence, but a relationship. It is how you choose to meet fear when it visits. And it always visits. The question is not whether you will feel fear, but whether you will meet it with clarity or collapse beneath it. Fear is one of the most natural experiences of being human, and yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many people treat fear as an enemy to be eradicated, something to suppress or deny. They tell themselves they are fearless because they refuse to acknowledge what frightens them. But deep down, avoidance only gives fear more power. Fearlessness is not about pretending fear does not exist. True courage is about clarity, seeing fear for what it is and choosing how to move in spite of it. To understand this fully, we must look not only at the psychology of fear, but also at its role in relationships, decisions, and personal growth. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, preparing to leap into deep water. Your body tenses, your breath quickens, your heart races. The fear is real. It is your nervous system trying to protect you from danger. Yet if you take a deep breath, observe the fear, and jump anyway, something changes. The fear dissolves the moment you act, and on the other side of the leap, exhilaration and confidence remain. This principle applies to much more than cliffs and water. It applies to every difficult conversation, every bold choice, every risk of opening your heart. Fear loses its grip when you see it clearly and step forward anyway. In relationships, fear often hides in subtler ways. The fear of rejection can make someone hold back their affection. The fear of abandonment can create clinging, suffocating behavior. The fear of conflict can silence a person when they should speak. All of these reactions weaken love because they are not grounded in truth, but in avoidance. Clarity means naming these fears, feeling them without judgment, and choosing to act from a deeper place. To say, I am afraid of losing you, but I will not betray myself to keep you, is an act of strength. To say, this conversation makes me uncomfortable, but I must speak my truth, is fearlessness in action. The fear is still present, but it no longer controls the outcome. There is a famous saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. It captures the essence of this practice. Denying fear keeps you small. Acknowledging it allows you to grow. When you face fear directly, your nervous system adapts. Each time you confront a fear and survive, your body and mind learn that you are capable. This rewires the way you relate to future challenges. Clarity in fear is not about the absence of emotion, but about directing your energy wisely. Instead of burning energy in avoidance, you use that same energy to take one step forward. Over time, this becomes your natural response. Fear arises, clarity observes, and action follows. Clarity is not only a mental practice, it is also embodied. When fear arises, the body constricts, the shoulders tighten, the breath shortens, the gaze narrows. This is the body's way of preparing for threat. Yet if you intervene by breathing deeply, loosening your body and lifting your gaze, your perception changes. The fear may still whisper, but your body no longer fuels its fire. In relationships, this shift is profound. Instead of shutting down or lashing out when fear appears, you remain open and steady. Your partner senses this, and instead of spiraling into conflict, both of you have the chance to communicate with honesty and calm. Clarity transforms fear into a teacher instead of a master, and this leads naturally into another principle: consistency outweighs intensity. Too often people believe transformation requires monumental, overwhelming effort. A total life overhaul, an extreme act of willpower, a sudden burst of discipline. They start strong with passion and urgency, only to burn out and return to their old patterns. Real change is not built on dramatic intensity. It is built on steady consistency, just as water shapes rock not through force, but through persistence. Your habits shape your life through repetition over time. Consider the way a relationship is built. It is not the grand gestures once in a while that determine its strength. A surprise gift or a romantic trip may feel wonderful, but they cannot sustain connection on their own. What truly matters are the daily habits, the way you listen with presence, the way you greet each other in the morning, the way you handle small disagreements with care. Consistency in these small moments creates trust, and trust is the foundation of any relationship. Without consistency, intensity is empty. A partner who showers you with attention for 1 week and neglects you the next creates instability. But a partner who shows up steadily with reliability and presence creates safety and love. The same is true in your personal growth. It is not the one day of extreme discipline that shapes you. It is the accumulation of small, repeated practices. There is a story about bamboo that illustrates this principle. For years after planting, bamboo shows almost no visible growth above the soil. Yet beneath the surface, it is spreading roots, preparing a deep and stable foundation. Then, in a short span of time, it shoots upward, growing rapidly. The sudden growth is only possible because of the years of unseen consistency underground. In life, people want the rapid growth without the steady preparation, but that is not how nature works. Your consistency, often invisible, is what prepares you for moments of visible transformation. In practical terms, this means choosing daily disciplines that align with your values. It could be as simple as taking 5 minutes every morning to breathe deeply and center yourself, journaling your thoughts before bed, or committing to honest communication in your relationships, no matter how small the issue. These practices may not feel dramatic, but over time they reshape your nervous system, your mindset, and your habits. The key is not how much you do at once, but whether you return to it consistently. The body learns through repetition, the mind strengthens through repetition, and love deepens through repetition. Intensity may excite, but consistency transforms. This principle also frees you from perfectionism. Many give up on new practices because they miss a day or two, believing the effort is wasted. But consistency is not perfection. It is returning again and again, even after setbacks. In relationships, this means apologizing and realigning after mistakes, not demanding perfection from yourself or your partner. In self-mastery, it means resuming your practice after a lapse, not abandoning it. The measure of growth is not in never falling, but in always returning. From here we move naturally into the role of emotions, because it is emotions that most often disrupt both clarity in fear and consistency in practice. Emotions are powerful and they are essential. They tell you when something matters, when you are connected, when you are in danger, or when you are safe. Yet many people mistake emotions for commands, allowing them to dictate behavior. To live this way is to be a puppet, pulled by strings you do not control. Emotions are signals, not dictators. They must be felt, acknowledged, and then interpreted with awareness. Think of a fire alarm. When it rings, it signals that something may be wrong, but it does not tell you exactly what is burning. If you panic and run without looking, you may endanger yourself more. If you ignore it entirely, you may remain in danger without realizing. The wise response is to hear the alarm, check for the fire, and then act appropriately. Emotions function in the same way. Anger signals that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness signals that something valuable has been lost. Fear signals that something feels uncertain. Joy signals alignment with what you value. But none of these signals dictate the correct response. That choice is yours if you remain aware. In relationships, this distinction is vital. If anger is treated as a dictator, it may drive shouting, harsh words, or withdrawal. If it is treated as a signal, you can ask what boundary is being crossed. How can I express this clearly and calmly? The same applies to sadness. If it dictates your action, you may withdraw entirely from connection. But if you treat it as a signal, you recognize your need for comfort and healing, and you can ask for support without drowning in despair. By separating signal from reaction, you gain emotional discipline, which is one of the deepest forms of strength. This does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression only pushes the signal deeper, where it festers and eventually explodes. It means acknowledging emotions fully, but choosing not to be ruled by them. For example, when jealousy arises in a relationship, the common reaction is either accusation or denial. But jealousy is a signal. It may point to insecurity within yourself, or it may point to a real imbalance in the relationship. If you pause, breathe, and look at the signal, you can respond wisely, either by strengthening your own self-worth or by addressing a boundary with your partner. The emotion is honored, but it does not dictate destructive behavior. There is wisdom in the saying, emotions are like visitors. Welcome them, but do not let them unpack and stay forever. This perspective allows you to live with compassion for yourself and others. When someone you love is angry, you see it as a signal rather than an attack, which opens the possibility for empathy and dialogue. When you are sad, you allow yourself to feel it, but you do not identify with it as your permanent reality. This balance gives you resilience because you are no longer at the mercy of every passing emotion. You feel deeply, but you remain free. Through clarity in fear, consistency in practice, and awareness of emotions as signals, life becomes a continuous process of growth and refinement. Fear no longer chains you because you see it clearly. Transformation no longer depends on bursts of intensity because you cultivate steady habits. Emotions no longer dictate your actions because you learn to listen without obeying blindly. Each principle supports the other, clarity strengthens consistency. Consistency builds emotional discipline, and emotional discipline deepens clarity. In relationships, these qualities are not abstract. They are felt by those around you. The more you embody them, the more you create trust, safety, and authenticity in every connection. Boundaries are one of the most misunderstood aspects of strength and relationships. Many people believe that to love deeply, they must remove all barriers, open themselves completely, and give without limit. Yet, what often follows is exhaustion, resentment, or even a sense of being taken for granted. The truth is that boundaries are not walls meant to shut others out. They are doors that decide who enters and how far. Without boundaries, relationships lack structure. With them, love can flow more freely because it is guided by clarity and mutual respect. Think of a house with open windows and no doors. Anyone can walk in, rearrange the furniture, take what they like and leave chaos behind. The house is not more welcoming for lacking doors. It is more vulnerable, less safe, and less respected. But when a house has doors, visitors must knock, and entry is granted with intention. The presence of a door does not make the house less warm. It makes it more secure, allowing those inside to welcome others with peace of mind. Boundaries function the same way in our lives. They do not mean we close off love or kindness. They mean we invite others in with respect, not intrusion. In relationships, boundaries communicate self-respect. When you say, "I am not comfortable with this," or "I need space here," you are not rejecting the other person. You are honoring yourself. And when you honor yourself, you create the conditions for others to honor you too. Without this, love becomes entangled with fear and obligation. People often give too much, hoping to be valued in return. But this is not love. It is negotiation in disguise. True love comes when you give freely, not from compulsion, but from choice. Boundaries make this possible by ensuring that your giving is sustainable, rooted in clarity rather than fear. This clarity begins with self-awareness. You cannot set boundaries if you do not know what matters to you. Many people struggle because they have spent years living according to others' expectations, saying yes to everything, pleasing everyone, and ignoring their own needs. Over time, resentment builds, but they cannot explain why. Boundaries begin by asking simple, yet profound questions. What do I need to feel respected? What behaviors drain my energy? Where do I feel resentment building? The answers to these questions point to where boundaries are lacking. Setting them is not selfish, it is essential. Without boundaries, even love becomes suffocating. There is a story of a woman who always agreed to help her friends, no matter how tired or busy she was. She believed this made her kind and loyal. Yet slowly she grew bitter, resenting the very people she wanted to love. One day, she realized that her resentment was not their fault. It was hers. She had never taught them her limits. She had allowed her door to remain wide open, so they entered whenever they wished. When she began to say no, something surprising happened. The friends who truly cared respected her boundaries and adjusted. Those who only valued her for what she gave drifted away. It hurt at first, but over time, she felt lighter, freer, and more authentic. Boundaries had filtered her relationships, leaving only those rooted in mutual respect. From here, we move into another profound principle: the danger of seeking validation from others. Many people live their lives like actors on a stage, constantly waiting for applause, approval, and recognition. Every decision, every word, every gesture is shaped by the imagined judgment of others. Yet living this way is exhausting because the applause is never consistent. One day you are praised, the next you are criticized. If your self-worth depends on these shifting voices, your sense of self will always be unstable. True strength comes from approving of yourself, from grounding your worth in your own awareness rather than in external validation. This search for validation often begins early. As children, approval from parents or teachers feels like survival. Praise brings love, criticism brings withdrawal. Over time, this can solidify into a pattern where you learn to measure yourself by external responses. In adulthood, this may show up in relationships, constantly asking, "Do you love me?" or needing reassurance through words and actions, even when the other has already shown commitment. It may show up in social media, where likes and comments determine your mood, or in work, where recognition from a boss or colleague dictates your sense of success. The danger is not in enjoying approval, but in needing it to feel whole. When you depend on external validation, you hand your power to others, and your happiness becomes fragile. The shift happens when you begin to recognize your own worth without external confirmation. This does not mean arrogance or dismissing others' opinions. It means cultivating an inner foundation so strong that praise or criticism cannot shake it. A tree does not ask the wind for permission to grow. It grows because it is rooted in the soil, nourished by its own roots. You too must learn to root yourself inwardly. This can begin with simple practices. Acknowledging your efforts each day, celebrating your progress regardless of recognition, and speaking kindly to yourself instead of waiting for others to do it. When you approve of yourself, you free others from the burden of carrying your self-esteem, and your relationships become healthier. Love becomes a gift rather than a transaction. One of the most powerful shifts comes when you realize that those who constantly seek validation often lose respect. People sense when you are needy for approval, and it unconsciously diminishes their trust. On the other hand, those who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who do not beg for recognition, are often respected more. This is not because they are louder or more dominant, but because they radiate self-sufficiency. They do not drain others with their insecurity. In relationships, this is transformative. A partner who does not need constant reassurance creates space for the other to relax, trust, and give freely. Approval flows naturally when it is not demanded. And this leads directly into the third principle here. Every no you give is a yes to your own growth. Many people fear saying no because they equate it with rejection or selfishness. They worry about disappointing others, about being seen as unkind or difficult. But the truth is that every time you say yes to something that violates your needs or values, you say no to yourself. Growth requires choosing yourself in these moments, not out of selfishness, but out of responsibility. A clear no protects your energy, your time, and your authenticity. It allows you to invest in what truly matters rather than scattering yourself thin across obligations that drain you. Saying no is an act of courage because it often invites discomfort. Others may push back, guilt you, or accuse you of changing, but their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your truth. Each no you speak strengthens your sense of self. Imagine someone who accepts every request from friends, family, or colleagues. Their schedule is filled, their energy depleted, their joy absent. Outwardly, they appear generous, but inwardly, they are resentful. Their yes has lost meaning because it is given without authenticity. Now imagine the same person learning to say no. At first, it feels strange, even painful. But over time, each no creates space for rest, for creativity, for genuine yeses that come from the heart. This is growth, choosing quality over quantity, depth over breadth, authenticity over approval. In relationships, this principle is even more powerful. A partner who cannot say no is not trustworthy because their yes may not be sincere. Trust is built when both yes and no are rooted in honesty. Saying no when you mean no allows your yes to shine with clarity. It shows that you are not motivated by fear of conflict or desire for approval, but by genuine choice. This creates respect, and respect strengthens love. Every boundary set, every act of self-approval, every clear no is not a rejection of others, but an affirmation of your own growth. And as you grow, you invite others to grow with you. Forgiveness is often seen as an act of weakness. People sometimes believe that to forgive is to let others off the hook, to allow them to walk away from responsibility or to accept mistreatment. But forgiveness, when understood correctly, is not softness in the fragile sense. It is release, and release requires strength. Forgiveness is not about condoning what has happened. It is about freeing yourself from carrying its weight. When you carry resentment, you carry the person who hurt you on your back wherever you go. Every conversation, every moment of silence, every relationship becomes colored by the unhealed wound. To forgive is to put down that burden, to to release the chain that binds you to the past. In this way, forgiveness is not something you do for them. It is something you do for yourself. Imagine two people walking through life, each holding a stone in their hand. One stone represents betrayal, the other represents anger. One person clutches the stone tightly, refusing to let go. Over time, the stone becomes heavier. Though its weight does not change, the hand grows tired. The arm aches, the body bends beneath the tension. The other person chooses to release the stone. Their hand feels light, their body free, their step renewed. The stone was never the real problem. It was the refusal to release it. Resentment functions the same way. Holding onto it drains you, not the one who caused it. Forgiveness is the choice to let go of the stone and reclaim your energy. This is not to say forgiveness is easy. In fact, it often feels impossible, especially when wounds run deep. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and it does not mean trusting again immediately. Forgiveness means acknowledging what happened, honoring your pain, and then making a conscious choice not to let that pain define your future. It is not reconciliation. It is liberation. You can forgive someone and still choose to walk away. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries. The essence of forgiveness lies not in erasing the past, but in refusing to let it poison the present. In relationships, forgiveness is vital because two people cannot share their lives without eventually hurting each other in some way, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Without forgiveness, even small wounds pile up until they create a wall between partners. A careless word, a forgotten promise, a moment of neglect. If each one is stored away without release, resentment grows and love suffocates. Forgiveness keeps the heart clear. It allows space for imperfection, both yours and theirs. To forgive does not mean to ignore patterns of harm, but it does mean to recognize that clinging to every mistake only deepens division. Forgiveness breathes oxygen into the relationship, keeping it alive. There is wisdom in the saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When you refuse to forgive, you poison yourself with bitterness. Your smile becomes harder, your laughter less free, your love less open. The one who hurt you may move on, unaware of the pain they caused, while you remain trapped. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the cage, not to free them, but to free yourself. And when you are free, you become stronger, calmer, and more present for the relationships that truly matter. This strength leads directly into the next principle. Strength attracts respect, while weakness attracts control. This is not a harsh rule of power, but a natural dynamic of human interaction. People sense energy. When you carry yourself with self-respect, clear boundaries, and calm presence, others instinctively respect you. But when you shrink, when you betray yourself to please others, when you allow fear to govern your choices, people sense that as well, and some will take advantage of it. It is not about blame, it is about energy. Weakness invites others to dominate, consciously or unconsciously, because it signals that you will not resist. Strength, on the other hand, signals that while you are open, you are not to be exploited. Respect flows naturally to those who respect themselves. Think of a workplace where two colleagues enter a meeting. One slouches in the chair, hesitant, speaking with uncertainty, avoiding eye contact. The other sits upright, speaks clearly, listens calmly, and does not over-explain or apologize unnecessarily. Who do you think will be treated with more respect? Neither may have more knowledge or skill, but presence communicates strength, and strength commands respect. The same dynamic plays out in personal relationships. If you do not respect yourself, if you accept mistreatment or constant neglect, you teach others how to treat you. Weakness creates an opening for control, while strength establishes a field of mutual respect. This principle applies deeply in love. Many women, and men too, struggle because they confuse being loving with being submissive. They give endlessly, overlook red flags, and silence their own needs, believing this will keep love alive. Instead, it often leads to imbalance, where one partner begins to control and the other begins to resent. Real love cannot thrive in such dynamics. When you carry strength, when you speak your needs with clarity, when you enforce your boundaries with calmness, when you refuse to settle for less than respect, you create a relationship where love grows alongside dignity. Weakness may keep someone temporarily, but it will not keep them healthily. Strength ensures respect, and respect sustains love. There is a quiet paradox. Here, strength does not mean dominance. Some believe that to be respected, they must be loud, forceful, or intimidating. But true strength is calm. It does not shout, it does not need to. A strong presence is not one that demands respect, but one that naturally commands it. Consider water again. A raging storm may be loud, but it passes quickly. A still lake reflects the sky, commanding, or not through force, but through stability. When you embody inner stability, you need not beg for respect or manipulate others into giving it. You simply live in a way that demands it naturally. And this brings us to another critical truth. Partnership thrives on balance, not dependence. Many relationships falter because they are built not on two complete individuals choosing each other, but on two incomplete individuals clinging to each other. This creates a cycle of dependence where one needs the other for validation, happiness, or even identity. While this may feel romantic at first, I can't live without you, it quickly becomes suffocating. Dependence erodes respect, and respect is the soil in which love grows. Balance, on the other hand, allows love to breathe. It allows two people to meet as equals, whole in themselves, sharing life not from emptiness, but from abundance. Think of a partnership like a dance. If one leans too heavily on the other, the dance collapses. Balance is necessary for movement, rhythm, and grace. In the same way, when both partners stand firmly on their own feet, they can move together with harmony. Dependence, however, makes one partner the support while the other collapses into need. Over time, resentment grows on both sides. The one who carries feels burdened, and the one who clings feels insecure. But when both stand strong, the dance becomes fluid and joyful. Love thrives not when it is needed for survival, but when it is chosen freely, again and again. This balance requires self-work. You cannot expect a partner to fill every void within you, to heal every wound, or to meet every need. That is too great a burden for any human being. You must learn to nourish yourself, to face your fears, to cultivate your own inner strength. Then, when you enter a relationship, you bring not emptiness but fullness. You no longer demand that your partner be your entire world because you already stand whole. Instead, you invite them into your world and you join theirs. This is balance. Two complete individuals meeting, sharing, and supporting, but never collapsing into dependence. One of the clearest signs of dependence is fear of solitude. Many people stay in relationships long after love has died, simply because they fear being alone. But loneliness is not healed by clinging to another. It is healed by learning to be at peace with yourself. When you can sit in solitude without fear, you enter relationships from choice, not desperation. This transforms everything, because you no longer compromise your dignity for the sake of company. Balance is built on the foundation of self-sufficiency, and only then can love truly flourish. In practice, this means cultivating independence while embracing interdependence. You care for yourself, you nurture your own growth, you find joy in your own life. And from that place of fullness, you share with your partner. You allow them the same freedom, trusting that love does not require control. When two individuals come together in this way, the relationship becomes a source of growth rather than confinement. Balance creates trust, trust creates respect, and respect sustains love. Fear in relationships takes many forms, but one of the most subtle and destructive is fearful attachment. When attachment is rooted in insecurity, the bond between two people is not based on love, but on anxiety. Instead of love being a space of growth and freedom, it becomes a place of control, suffocation, and fear of loss. Fearful attachment often arises when someone believes deep down that they are not enough, that love must be earned or fought for, and that the absence of constant reassurance means abandonment is near. This belief turns the relationship into a battlefield where peace is rarely found. A partner living from fearful attachment clings tightly, not out of genuine closeness, but out of desperation. Every silence is interpreted as rejection. Every delay in response is magnified into betrayal. Every boundary the other sets feels like abandonment. This kind of love exhausts both partners because it is not truly love. It is fear wearing love's mask. Fear demands control, while love invites freedom. When fear drives attachment, the desire to hold on becomes so strong that it ends up pushing the other person away. Like trying to grasp water with a clenched fist. The tighter you hold, the less you can keep. True courage in love is allowing space. It is saying, I do not need to suffocate you with my fear, because I trust that what is real will remain. This courage is not passive. It is active strength. It requires standing in the discomfort of uncertainty without giving in to controlling impulses. Many people equate love with possession. If you love me, you must always be with me. You must reassure me constantly. You must never need space. But this is not love. It is ownership. Real love flourishes in the soil of freedom, where both partners can breathe. Freedom does not mean distance or disinterest. It means respecting the individuality of the other while still choosing closeness. Think of a bird in your hand. If you hold it too tightly, you crush it. If you hold it too loosely, it flies away. The art is in balance. Holding gently, firmly enough to let it know it is safe, but loosely enough to let it breathe. Relationships thrive in this balance. If you trust, you do not need to grip. If you love, you allow space. Fearful attachment dissolves when you realize that suffocating another person does not bring them closer. It only drives them further. Courage means risking loss to preserve freedom. And paradoxically, when you give freedom, you often deepen love, because the other chooses you not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. This naturally leads into the principle of emotional self-regulation, because allowing space in love requires stability within yourself. Emotional self-regulation is the foundation of trust. Not only trust in your partner, but trust in yourself. If you cannot hold your own emotions, if you collapse every time fear or anger arises, your relationships will feel unstable. People need to feel that the one they are close to can hold themselves with dignity even in difficulty. Without this, relationships are filled with volatility, where both are constantly walking on eggshells, unsure of when the next explosion will come. Imagine a partner who, at every small disagreement, loses control, shouting, crying, or withdrawing completely. Over time, the other partner does not feel safe expressing themselves honestly because they fear the emotional storm that will follow. The relationship becomes shallow, built on avoidance rather than truth. Emotional regulation, however, creates a different foundation. It allows you to feel deeply without being consumed. It allows you to say, I am angry right now, but I will not lash out. I am hurt right now, but I will not withdraw in silence. I will hold myself, breathe, and speak with clarity. This steadiness creates safety. When your partner knows you can hold yourself, they feel free to open themselves fully. Trust grows because you are not ruled by your impulses. Emotional regulation does not mean suppressing your feelings. Suppression only buries emotions alive, where they fester until they resurface more destructively. Regulation means noticing what arises, naming it, breathing with it, and choosing how to respond. If fear arises, you acknowledge it. This fear is here. If anger arises, you recognize it. This anger is here. By naming the emotion, you create space between you and it. You are no longer consumed, you are aware. With awareness comes choice. Instead of reacting blindly, you can act with clarity. In relationships, this changes everything. Arguments become opportunities for understanding instead of battles for dominance. Disagreements become spaces for growth instead of triggers for destruction. The power of emotional regulation is evident in small daily moments. Imagine being ignored in conversation, your partner distracted by their phone. A reactive impulse might be to snap, accuse, or retreat into silence. But with regulation, you pause, breathe, and say calmly, I feel unseen right now. Can we talk? The difference between these two approaches determines whether the moment escalates into conflict or becomes an opportunity for closeness. Regulation is the bridge between emotion and wisdom. It allows you to honor your feelings while protecting the bond you share. When you can regulate yourself, you become an anchor for your partner. In times of stress, your calm presence steadies them. In times of conflict, your clarity cools the fire. In times of sadness, your steadiness provides comfort. Trust grows not only from promises or words, but from this lived reliability. People feel safe with those who are emotionally stable, because safety is not created by avoiding storms, but by knowing you can navigate them together. And here we arrive at the next principle. A strong woman does not overpower a man, she empowers herself. This is a crucial distinction because many confuse strength with competition. They believe that to be strong, they must dominate, control, or prove superiority. But real strength is not about winning over another. It is about mastering yourself. In relationships, this is transformative. When you empower yourself, you uplift the entire relationship. When you seek to overpower, you diminish it. Overpowering comes from insecurity. It says, I must prove that I am stronger than you, that I do not need you, that I can dominate this space. But this creates tension because relationships are not battlegrounds. When one seeks to overpower, the other feels diminished, and love becomes a struggle for control. Empowering yourself, however, is different. It says, I am whole within myself. I do not need to prove my strength by crushing yours. I stand firmly in my own dignity, and from that place, I can love you freely. This kind of strength is attractive because it creates balance rather than conflict. Imagine a woman who constantly tries to dominate her partner, always correcting, always competing, always needing to have the last word. Over time, the relationship becomes heavy, more like a contest than a partnership. Now imagine a woman who is strong in herself. She knows her worth. She stands for her boundaries. She expresses her truth calmly and clearly, but she does not seek to belittle or dominate. Her partner feels respected, not diminished, and in that space, he too can stand strong. This balance creates harmony. The relationship becomes two strong individuals standing side by side, not two insecure individuals battling for control. Empowering yourself means cultivating independence, clarity, and discipline. It means taking responsibility for your growth instead of blaming your partner for your unhappiness. It means developing your body, mind, and spirit so that you bring fullness into the relationship rather than emptiness. When you empower yourself, you shift from dependence to choice. You no longer need your partner to fill your void. You choose them because they enrich the fullness you already carry. This is a strength that uplifts both. True strength in a relationship is measured not by how much control you exert, but by how much freedom you allow while remaining grounded yourself. To empower yourself is to be unshakable in your values, clear in your needs, and disciplined in your emotions. This steadiness invites your partner to meet you as an equal, not as a rival. Together, you build not a battlefield of power struggles, but a sanctuary of growth and respect. The rhythm of your life is often decided long before the world places its demands upon you. The morning is not simply a part of the day, it is the foundation of your being, the quiet workshop where you shape the direction of your energy, emotions, and choices. A day that begins with chaos tends to spiral into chaos. A day that begins with clarity tends to unfold with purpose. The way you rise in the morning sets the tempo for how you will engage with yourself, your work, and your relationships. And yet so many people begin their day not by creating rhythm, but by immediately surrendering it to distraction, grabbing the phone, scrolling endlessly, reacting before they even breathe with awareness. This is like giving away the conductor's baton to someone else before the orchestra has even begun to play. Discipline in the morning is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about claiming that first hour as your own before the world claims it for you. Breathwork in the morning clears the restless mind. Movement wakes the body and strengthens the connection between your inner and outer world. Silence allows you to hear yourself before you hear anyone else. Even the simplest rituals, a glass of water, 5 minutes of deep breathing, a short walk under the sky, set a rhythm of care and discipline that shapes the hours to come. Relationships benefit deeply when both individuals learn to begin their day from alignment instead of from reaction. Imagine a household where both partners rush into their mornings in a storm of noise, alarms ringing, hurried movements, no real connection, only urgency. By the time the day begins, frustration has already set in. But imagine instead that the morning begins with calm intention. Even if it is only a brief moment of shared silence or a warm embrace, the tone shifts. From that center, the relationship breathes easier throughout the day because it is rooted in rhythm rather than in chaos. When you train yourself to discipline the morning, you learn a greater principle. Your inner world creates the outer rhythm. The body, the breath, the silence, all become instruments to bring awareness into daily life. The more consistently you practice, the more predictable your state of being becomes. Others begin to feel safe around you because they see that you are not tossed about by every passing emotion or demand. You become someone who carries balance, and that balance is contagious. People are drawn to the presence of those who carry discipline because discipline radiates stability. This discipline naturally connects to the way you spend energy throughout the day. Every person is given a finite supply of energy, and yet many act as though it is limitless. They pour it recklessly into anger, anxiety, gossip, or worry. They waste it on endless reaction rather than intentional creation. Imagine your energy as water in a vessel. Every time you react to small irritations, the vessel leaks. Every time you give attention to things that do not matter, more water drains away. By the end of the day, when it truly matters, when you need energy for love, for connection, for creativity, you are empty. To use energy wisely means to recognize its value. It means asking yourself at each moment its energy, is this worth my energy? Is this conflict worth pouring myself into? Is this argument worth draining my reserves? Or would it be wiser to remain calm, to redirect that energy into something that builds rather than destroys? Many people spend more energy proving themselves right than they do building a life worth living. They waste energy on resentment, replaying conversations in their mind instead of living in the present. but wisdom teaches that energy is precious. Every reaction you choose has a cost. Every response you make either invests or drains. Relationships are perhaps the clearest reflection of how we use energy. A couple that spends their days in constant argument, fueled by petty reactions, finds themselves exhausted, not because love is absent, but because energy has been misused. On the other hand, a couple that consciously chooses where to spend their energy, that knows when to let go of trivial matters and when to engage deeply, finds themselves with more to give. They return home at the end of the day not empty, but full, because they have not scattered their strength on meaningless battles. Energy used wisely transforms relationships. Instead of reacting with frustration when your partner forgets something small, you choose patience. Instead of feeding anger with accusations, you channel it into a clear conversation. Instead of spending hours replaying what you dislike about them, you redirect that attention to gratitude for what they bring into your life. The redirection of energy is not denial, it is mastery. It is knowing that the place you pour your energy becomes the place that grows. When you pour it into resentment, resentment grows. When you pour it into appreciation, appreciation grows. Energy is a gardener, and your attention is the water. Whatever you choose to water, that is what you harvest. Using energy wisely requires awareness, but awareness grows with practice. Begin by observing yourself. Notice the moments when your energy leaks away. Perhaps it is through overthinking, through the endless search for validation, through replaying old arguments in your mind. Ask yourself, what if I stopped pouring energy there? What if I redirected it into learning, into growth, into loving fully? The more you observe, the more you will see that much of what drains you is unnecessary. Slowly, you will begin to conserve. Slowly, you will begin to invest. Over time, this discipline will give you strength. And this brings us to the understanding that life itself is a dojo, a training ground for self-mastery. Too many people separate their life into compartments. They think training is only for the gym, meditation only for a cushion, discipline only for moments of ritual. But the truth is that every moment is practice. The way you speak to your partner in frustration is training. The way you hold yourself when someone disrespects you is training. The way you respond when life does not give you what you expected is training. If you see life as a dojo, then every challenge is not an obstacle, but an opportunity to refine your discipline. Consider the martial artist who trains not to fight others, but to master himself. Each strike, each movement, each breath is practice in control, awareness, and presence. In the same way, every relationship challenge is a chance to train your emotional presence. When your partner triggers your anger, that moment is your dojo. Will you react blindly, or will you breathe and respond with clarity? When life disappoints you, that is your dojo. Will you collapse into despair, or will you use it to cultivate patience? Life constantly presents us with sparring partners in the form of challenges, disappointments, and conflicts. The wise do not resent these partners, they train with them. Relationships offer perhaps the most rigorous dojo of all. Living closely with another person will expose every weakness you try to hide. Your impatience, your insecurity, your fear, they all surface in the mirror of intimacy. Many people run from this, blaming the other person for the discomfort. But those who see life as a dojo recognize that these moments are their greatest teachers. Instead of saying, "You make me angry," they ask, "What in me is being triggered, and how can I train with it?" Instead of saying, "You are the problem," they ask, "What is this situation teaching me about myself?" In this way, relationships become the most powerful training ground for self-mastery. When you embrace life as your dojo, nothing is wasted. The delays, the disappointments, the betrayals, all become practice. The moments of joy and intimacy are also practice, teaching you to hold gratitude and not take love for granted. Every season, whether storm or calm, becomes part of your training. This perspective changes how you move through life. You no longer avoid challenges. You welcome them as opportunities. You no longer see your partner's flaws as enemies. You see them as mirrors, revealing where your own training must deepen. Discipline in the morning, wise use of energy, and the perspective of life as a dojo are not separate principles. They flow together as one. The rhythm you set in the morning teaches you to begin with alignment. The discipline of energy teaches you to live with intention. The dojo of life teaches you that every moment is an opportunity for growth. Together, they create a way of being that strengthens not only you, but everyone connected to you. A partner who lives with such discipline becomes a source of stability in the relationship. A parent who embodies it becomes a model for their children. A friend who practices it becomes a grounding presence for others. This strength is not loud, not controlling, not dominating. It is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It is the kind of strength that allows love to flourish because it does not come from fear or insecurity, but from mastery. Strength is not about rejecting softness, nor is it about